So first of all, my name is Mark. For those of you that don't know me, I'm the owner of Omen Coffee Co., which isn't saying much because it's a fairly new company. However, I have built a couple companies before, or a couple businesses before, and then also I've got to a pretty high level in sales. I've made, speak up, sorry Grace, you know, significant other in the crowd. But you know, I've worked myself up to making multiple six figures, so like $200,000, and just to put it in perspective, I guess, just for those of you, I think it's important to lead with some of this stuff just for credibility's sake. But you know, I started at a company making $30,000, and then in 3 years I was making $200,000. So you know, that's kind of like the timetable that we worked on. I also came home from prison when I was 25 years old. And I had to start my life completely over from scratch. You know, I didn't have, sometimes I like to describe it as, I had the kind of nothing that most people will never know. Because even when you're born with something. You know, you go home to a house and there's a crib and clothes and diapers. But like, I didn't have any clothes, I didn't have any, you know, shoes or, you know, any personal property, any money. And then in my first year home, I built a six-figure business. It was just a personal training business, but I was making like between $10,000 and $14,000 a month. So anyway, I've done a couple things, and business has come, I don't want to say it's come intuitively to me. Truthfully, I've been doing this my whole life as far as sales. You know, when I was like 15 years old, I started selling things and sort of got the knack for it at that point. But through the building of Omen Coffee Co. specifically, because I definitely think that this is going to be like a crown jewel for me, so to speak. My previous career, I'm very proud of what I did there, and you know, I built a lot of relationships and stuff like that. But Omen Coffee Co. is going really, really well, better than even I anticipated, and you know, I have no reason to think that it's going to slow down. However, this process of building like a brick and mortar business has been completely new to me. And so I wrote down four lessons, so to speak, that I've learned through this process that I just want to share with you guys. You know, entrepreneur to entrepreneur, just ambitious person to ambitious person. I think that we learn all of our most valuable lessons in life from experiences. You know, we can learn a lot in the classroom. You can learn a lot from watching other people, but I've always learned the most from actually getting in there and doing it. And so I've learned some really valuable things, and hopefully, you know, these things are helpful to you guys. So the first lesson that this process has taught me specifically, because I knew that I wanted to have a coffee company for a long time. I really did. Like, I love coffee. I fell in love with coffee years ago. And I always imagined that I would start a coffee company as a passion project. Like, I don't know, you just don't, like, when you think about like my friends and my family joke about like world domination. Like, sometimes I'll just be sitting there with like a blank look on my face and they're like, uh-oh, that's like his world domination face, you know? But when I think about world domination, like, it never occurred to me that like a coffee shop would get me to world domination, you know? And so anyway, I always put it off. Just thinking like, okay, when I get to this point where I'm like financially set and I have money to play with, I'll do that for fun. And as soon as the time came for me to actually transition out of my career and go into coffee, I had this vision that I had been seeing forever, like this coffee shop that I wanted to build. And so I tried to go immediately from A to Z. So I went, and the first thing I did was hunt for a building. I went out, I found a building that looked exactly like the one that's on my vision board. I found one that was perfect. I got all excited, and I signed a 4-year lease. All right, so now I'm committed to this building for 4 years. I have no coffee company. I have no coffee. I have no baristas. I don't know how to make a latte. I don't know anything, but I have a building that I just signed for, right? And no cash flow and anything. And so the lesson, and this is arguably the most valuable lesson that I've learned so far, is that if I were to do it all over again, I would do it differently. And specifically what I would do is, instead of having, like, we all have this idea of what we want to build someday. And sometimes life presents you with an opportunity that looks like it's your chance to do what you always wanted to do. And we just dive right in like I did, and we sign up and we put our back against the wall and we're like, okay, this is it, make or break. However, there was a way I could have done it where I didn't like necessarily risk it all. And how I could have done it is once I got in, I found a green coffee distributor. Then I had to find a graphic designer to design our bags. Then I had to find a coffee roaster to roast the coffee. And I got into that process and I realized that I literally could have started Omen Coffee Co. Like what you guys know as Omen Coffee Co., our coffee, our bags, the online business. I could have started that company with $3,000. Like I'm talking the first shipment of coffee out the door, profitable in my first month. And instead, I went and put myself like, not really hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, but like I signed a lease that's worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I didn't have to. I could have really started Omen Coffee Co. when I first started to think about it years ago, because it only cost $3,000 to get coffee, to get a bag designed, and then social media provides this platform where we can literally start selling direct to consumer for like next to nothing. And so the lesson is, if I was to do it all over again, I would have started way earlier, and I would have had the prudence to ask myself, is there a place that I can start? Is there a first step that I can take that's not the vision that I want to create, right? Because I was so eager to create the vision that I wanted that I wouldn't settle for anything less than committing to that process. When really, in reality, I could have easily built Omen Coffee Co. I could have started building the message, building the community, building the brand, selling the products, and then eventually funded the build out of the coffee shop space with the money that I made for the first 2 years or however long it took, selling coffee online, working my job, making multiple six figures the whole time. Okay, so I'm a dumbass, all right? That's the moral of the story, okay? I've got gray hairs now. I've got like 4 gray hairs. Grace found them because for real, I walked into my job and I just quit, same day. No, I said I'll wait for 2 weeks if you really need me to, but I don't want to, and it was stupid. It was stupid, man. These last 6-7 months have been so hard because I got no money coming in and all money going out. No loans, no financing, and it's just like there's a finite amount of money here, and it's either going to work or it's not. And again, if I were to do it all over again, it didn't have to be that way. And a lot of you guys have amazing ideas. But like, okay, really stop and ask yourself, like, where are the seeds that I could be planting? What steps? The question I ask myself is, what can I do today? What can I do today to get myself closer to where I want to be? And like, all of us in here, I would hope to think that we have the perspective that what we're trying to do is we're trying to build a mountain. And every day you only get to contribute a grain of sand. You know what I mean? Like no matter, if you show up, you kill it today, okay, cool, you put another grain of sand on your mountain. But like that's how long it's going to take. And the sooner you can start piling those grains of sand up, the better. That's, I guess, what I'm trying to say. Anybody got it? Just like Mahika, I'm super informal, as you guys can see. I love having conversations. I can speak if I need to. But I would love it too if you guys have thoughts or feedback. This feels better when it's a conversation.
You said that, how like if you would have did it differently, but I also like that you took the risk, because a lot of things that we do in life, like that building, like taking that financial risk, that motivated you every day to get what you wanted to get.
Oh, you have to.
You have to. The quote about planting seeds is like the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, but you decided to plant it today.
Mm-hmm.
And like you would not have the coffee shop, you'd be making a couple thousand a month or whatever selling coffee online. But then you'd be working your job and it gets harder and harder to quit. Every check comes in, when you're making 10 grand a month, it's harder and harder to quit and walk away from that.
Yeah.
So you just have to fucking walk away, and you did, and that's the reason what you did is impressive. To do that in 6 months is crazy.
It's even harder to walk away from those checks when they're 20 grand a month.
Yeah. 20
Yeah.
Do you think you would be where you are today if you had done it the way that, without signing the building? Do you think you would be? Or do you think
I do. Like, just there's concepts that you got to understand to make business work. Like what I was talking about over there, as far as like selling an idea and stuff like that. And certain things, certain processes you can't speed up. Like no matter how good I am at that, it takes time for that message to resonate. It takes time for it to sink in. It takes time for him to come to the shop Actually, it doesn't take him any time at all. And he told every friend that he has, literally.
It's
But it does take time. It's like it's one transaction, one customer interaction at a time that eventually leads one customer, turns one customer into two, two to four, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so I do think that the other way would have been better only because that's the only difference, is the time would have just compounded the number of people I would have been able to touch today.
To counter-argue, though, what you could have done versus what you did do, right? It made things more challenging. Challenge creates grit. It gives you the endurance to even go through the other hard times you'll go through. But at the same time, it's not like you were just sitting around. You were cultivating something that went back into the conversation we were having earlier where, like me, why did I want to buy this? Like, I have plenty of friends who have cool businesses, whatever. It doesn't mean I'll buy their clothing whatsoever. It was because I was buying into the vision of what Omen is. It's like, cool, it's a cup of coffee. I enjoy good coffee. Cool, it's a cool t-shirt, the slogan, but it's the deeper meaning of what I know that you're building, that even though you could have probably had bags online, and all that, it's you've created an environment the entire time you were building an idea, a message. So where you didn't have the product online like you could have, ahead of time, you were cultivating, in my opinion, something even more important than that product, which is the whole reason why so many people are showing up this last week.
Yeah, it's relationships. Yeah.
I mean, it's been packed because people are driving hours, literally hours.
But that's not sustainable, Like I would argue. So what Mahika was just touching on is personal branding, and that's why Omen is doing well so far, because my personal brand is strong.
Yeah.
But it's not sustainable to think that you can build a business on your personal brand alone, which is why I would have tried to depend on the ripple effect, sort of. However, I'm really glad I did it how I did it. Like for me personally, I operate best when my back is against the wall. I operate best when I'm under pressure. And so I'm glad I did. However, when people come to me, this is what the advice that I would give them, because now I'm looking at it in retrospect. It was too late. When I realized this, it was too late. Like I was, a month in, like, man, I am so stupid. I should have done it different. Exactly. And the first rent check was a quarter. It wasn't just a month. So I'm like, oh, my Lanta, But this is the advice I would give. Anybody else have any? Cool. So the second one, and I'm really, really, really big on this, is that you don't have to be qualified. You have to be honest and you have to be authentic. And I'm huge on this because I have no formal higher education. I didn't go to college. And even within my space, so coffee, I've had several conversations recently with coffee roasters, coffee shop owners, and even customers who are just coffee snobs, where they'll come in, and I say that in a nice way. They're not snobs, they're connoisseurs. But they'll come in and they'll try to engage me in a conversation about coffee, right? And I'll just be like, hey, listen, I'm not really a coffee guy, and it catches people off guard because obviously I own a coffee company and everybody expects me to know everything about coffee. And it's really, really, really reinforced this point, which is that you don't have to be qualified, you just have to be honest and authentic, because they love that. Because then the question is like, okay, well, why'd you get into coffee? And I get a chance to really present sort of my branding messages or, the actual mission behind my business. But I got into this, I dove into this project, and like I said, I didn't know anything about sourcing green coffee beans. I didn't know anything about how to roast. I didn't have a graphic designer. I don't know how to build a website. I didn't even know how to make espresso. To be honest, I have a $30,000 espresso machine, and I drink drip coffee every morning. Like I swear, I literally use the pot that we bought off Amazon and make batch coffee because I'm not really a coffee guy, And when I was speaking to Connor, who's the owner of Upshot Coffee, this guy's a coffee guy, and I was saying, man, dude, we have some of the best coffee roasters in St. Louis between these guys, Upshot, Sump, Blueprint. Like we have some rock solid coffee roasters, right? And so for me to get into this business and pretend to be a coffee guy, there's no way I can make it. There's no way I can, I'm not a, and so instead of, I think that people dive into a space and then they feel like they need to be qualified. They feel like they need to be the expert, and so they pretend. And like Mahika was saying, like it's too easy to fact check. It's too easy, and people can see through it. But I also think there's a tremendous opportunity in just being honest and authentic. Because then people, this is what has literally happened, is I have people coming out of the woodwork trying to teach me coffee in a way that I'm receptive to and to the extent that I really want to learn about it. But also now I get a chance to really I think about it as staying in my own lane, right? And I get a chance to define what's my lane. I'm not going to compete with these guys on a product point, because I know that they know more about coffee than I do. And so it gives me a huge advantage, because now I'm identifying where am I going to compete with them. And I can focus 100% of my energy and attention on the thing that I am qualified on, right? On the thing that I am the expert on, which is the words that Mahika used. And so this is kind of a second build upon that point, which is that you don't have to be qualified, you have to be honest and authentic. And has anybody in here ever read the book Good to Great? Good to Great? Nobody's, what, only Juno? Are you kidding me? It's a great book. You guys all need to read that book, okay? Anyway, it's like one of the best business books ever. Okay, so anyway, in Good to Great, they talk about something called the hedgehog concept. I'm really building my talk off the fact that you guys knew this, but they talk about something called the hedgehog concept, and they say the hedgehogs aren't good at, they're only good at one thing. And that's all they do. And I don't really know what they're good at, but this is the name of the concept. And essentially what's behind it is that you just have to identify something that you think that you can be the best at, that you can be the absolute best at, and just focus on doing that. It's also like what we've all heard is like if you're good at everything, then you're not great at anything. Similar concept, okay? But it really resonated with me when I read this passage in Good to Great of, figure out what you can be the best at. So again, relating it to my space. I looked around the coffee space, I looked around St. Louis, and I said, man, a lot of these dudes are really fucking great at roasting coffee. They go all around the world visiting farms and beans. Can I realistically compete with them on this level? No, I can't. And so where can I win? What's going to be my hedgehog concept? What do I think that I can be the absolute best at? And for me, my hedgehog concept is providing a customer experience. I think that irrespective of the coffee, that I'm able to provide the best customer experience in my shop. And so Juno countered me when we were having this conversation. He said, well, your product has to be good though, right? Product or service, because I know there's some service-based people in here. And that's absolutely true. But I also think that there's a standard threshold of quality that once you pass it, it's not like there's a point of diminishing returns. We can argue up here about who's the best at what they do. However, as long as you pass the threshold and you're great, you have a great product, you have a great service. Even if you're not the best, it's all the other things that I think make you the best. I think those are the things that make you stand out. And so I've outsourced some of the things that I'm not great at. Like, I don't understand the roasting process very well. I can't look at green coffee beans and decide which one is higher quality and which is not. So I have a guy that I trust a lot that does that. And I make sure that my coffee passes the threshold. And now my hedgehog concept is, okay, once I'm in the conversation of, man, there's great coffee here, now what else can I do? What can I do to be the best and stand out, which is what Juno was asking me. So even though I'm not qualified, I've identified my hedgehog concept, customer experience, and then I'm going to, in a practical sense, I'm going to base all my decisions off of that. So instead of basing it off spending too much time in R&D or money on R&D coming up with better drink combinations or whatever, my menu is so basic. It's so basic. I have all the basic drinks with vanilla, chocolate, or caramel. That's it. You know, we didn't go and get any extraordinary flavors. We don't have any unique drink combos or nothing. We have a very standard coffee-based menu, and it's because that's just one small example of how I've sort of forewent what is the shiny object and what's tempting to try to compete on, because I know that that's not my hedgehog concept. And instead, I'm training my cashier, for example. When you come in there, she'll be like, you know, checking you out, and then at some point she'll be like, oh, and hey, what's your name? And you'll say, I'm Luke, and she'll reach over, hi, I'm Bridget, you know, and it's because I know how, I could ask you guys, when's the last time you were in a retail environment and somebody reached over the counter and shook your hand, right? And so those are the little things that instead of spending so much time on this, I'll spend the time training my employee to be the best at what I want to be the best at. Does that make sense? Okay, and then just a little bit on the point of like, you don't have to feel qualified. I always joke, but it's not really joking. Like, I literally didn't know anything about coffee, any more than the typical coffee drinker. Like the person that drives through Starbucks every day, I knew as much about coffee as they do 6 months ago. And people, I've talked to so many people that they just wait, they push off starting on their path or chasing their dream because they're waiting to feel qualified, when in reality, even if you go to school, like anybody in here ever been a personal trainer? Okay, a lot of you guys. You take that test, right? I took the test. You take that test, do you feel qualified? What, did you walk in the gym like, all right, who wants to train with me?
I didn't feel qualified from the test, but I felt qualified because I had a personal trainer that trained me and taught me. But as far as like,
Well, actually,
paperwork, not really.
you just made a great point for me, right?
Yeah.
So you feel qualified because you learned on the job,
Yeah.
right? And I think,
work for the same company.
yeah, I think no matter what, no matter how many books you read, and no matter, you know, how many speeches or podcasts you listen to, you're not actually going to feel really confident in what you do until you get in there and get your hands dirty. You learn on the job more than anything else. And so that's how I approach building the company. Is like, it's one step at a time. People were asking me like, how did you learn how to run a coffee company? Like, dude, I literally still don't. Like, I'm still learning every day. For real. I went to a roaster and I've just removed my ego 100%. And every step along the way, whether it's the graphic design, the website, and my friend Seema is actually a great example of this. Like, she's building a business right now on building websites for other people, right? And doing a little bit of like graphic design work and stuff like that. My website was the first website she ever built. It's the first website she ever built. And she, you know,
She got the most famous coffee drink in town.
and you know what? It was trash. It was trash. It was trash. But if you look at my website now, you know what I mean? It looks like something. It looks like something because she, you know, you just have to be willing to remove your ego and learn. You don't.
Clear, I did the one now.
Yeah. She did. Yeah. She came back. She did it, and it was operable. We started selling coffee, but it was like kind of embarrassing. Like, I didn't even like going on my own website. But you know what? I couldn't afford anything else, you know, and she was willing to help and blah blah blah. But you know, but like it's just no. But it's the point though, is like, I don't know. I feel like it's so tempting to obsess over those details and to not do it because the website's not perfect, or to not start your business because you don't know how to, you know, build from scratch. Like she was using Wix, like a template, you know. So the point is, you could start. You don't need to be qualified. You don't really need to be educated in the subject matter. You have to have a relentless work ethic, and you have to be able to remove your ego and go in and just learn the information that's going to enable you to get in the game. You know what I mean? That's the whole point, is getting in the game. And now she's doing really well, and my website looks amazing now. So.
I like what you said about like the coffee being out of standard, because it's like the same thing of like drinking lemonade on a sunny day. It tastes better. And I think that like when you create a community, the coffee is just a byproduct, similar to what Juno said about his clothes. Like, he sells community engagement, but he just happens to have a product that people can buy. So I think it's the same way like airplane. Coca-Cola tastes amazing on an airplane. I don't know why, but it tastes better because you're in a different space.
It's really interesting.
And like, I'm the same way. It's like, I buy products from people. I don't buy products from brands. So it's like, you're just selling a community and you just happen to have coffee available.
Yeah, and not only that, I think it's so important to understand like, what's your product? Like, what is your product? Like, it looks like on the surface to people that don't live in this world, right, that my product is coffee. But what, Juno, you and I were just talking about this. I don't think about it that way. My product that I'm selling is quite literally the experience that you get. But to take it a step further, if you guys know about like Dr. Joe Dispenza, he does a lot of work on like the power of like collective prayer, collective energy, collective intent, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, I'm literally trying to build a collection of energy there that when you walk in, you feel it. Even if you don't know that that's my intent, you walk out and you feel that you just walked out of it. You say, man, dude, that place is freaking awesome. Dude, 3 days in, I had a guy he worked there for like 5 days, or excuse me, 5 hours, and he was my last guy in the shop. I was closing down, and his name is Pablo. So he puts his bag on and he says to me, man, dude, this place, the vibe in this place is awesome. And I'm like, thanks, man. You know, I'm really glad you like it. And he's like, nah, dude, like, I'm serious. Like, when I walked in here, I thought to myself, man, these people must all be best friends with each other or something. But then I heard you say, it was nice to meet you. And when he walked out, I sat there and I thought about that for hours, because that is the product that I'm trying to sell. And when you identify what your product is, you can base all of your operational decisions, all of your training, all of your SOPs off of that understanding. But some people get into it and they think that like everything is the product. No, everything can't be the product, because you'll lose. You know, other people like the Caldi's guys, they're obsessing over the bean. So if I'm trying to perfect everything, there's no way I'm gonna beat them on their product, right? So, cool. Anybody else got thoughts on that?
I really like that, the first thing that you know, I know, it's like community, then coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I think that's really a great concept because.
It's my mission statement right there. No, keep going.
I love I love that, because it's one of those things. It's like I'm one of those people. I always think about this. Like, I hate accounting. I have an MBA. I hate accounting. The amount of time that I would spend trying to do my own taxes and expense my own things versus outsourcing that to someone who's better than me, right? Like, how much time would I lose trying to learn something that I'm not good at when I know what I am good at? Like, for you, you're great at building the community. You know what you want on that end, and then I like that you outsourced to find somebody who will make your coffee great. And I think that's what not enough businesses do, is take the time to be like, hey, these are my strengths, let's hone in there, and hire somebody who's great to do the rest.
Yeah.
The people that really care about the coffee is like a 1% person. It's the guy that has a beard, tattoos, that wears overalls. Like, those are the people that really care about how fucking good the coffee is. It's the same as the craft beer guys. Kevin Limp from Forehands told me the same thing. We can't sell beer to guys with mustaches all day.
Yeah.
You know, like, we have to
How
sell
many
it to
of us are
everyone.
walking into your store
Well,
today?
exactly.
That's 1%
But
of
I think what also some entrepreneurs miss too is, I swear, and I did this with my very first business. I don't know, I guess I intuitively understand this, but I will literally refer those guys somewhere else. I don't have a problem doing that at all. Like, I'll literally be like, hey man, the guys over at Sump, have you tried their coffee? It's fire. You might like it over there. Because this, you know, there's just this power in owning that and understanding that you're not for everyone, and then also, you know, appealing to your customer, because you know, it's just a watered down version of your brand when you're trying to make everybody happy. So, cool. You guys just said something that made me think, and I had a good thought and I lost it, and I don't want to move on without it, but it will come back. Okay, so this is gonna sound, I don't know, whatever. This is gonna sound a little bit overconfident, right? But it's just a concept, okay? And I have this concept that the concept is, it's so easy to be the best. It's so easy to be the best. And what I mean by that, I guess I'll tell you the story that inspired it, but like, Grace and I'm originally from upstate New York. In upstate New York, they have this car wash chain. It's called Hoffman's. Like, these dudes took fast car washes to a totally different level. But it's really simple what they do. Like, you go through an automatic car wash, they have a person at the front, they talk to you, you know, whatever. They make your wait seem very short, because you're usually waiting in line, because they'll just chit chat with you. Then you get in there, you get out, you step out of your vehicle, and they got like 4 12-year-olds, you know, that go in there and clean it. They clean the door jambs, they spray on the dash, they wipe it down real quick. It takes literally 60 seconds, and you tip the kids. Well, dude, first of all, the line for that car wash is always like around the block. But I come to St. Louis and we have like, what are they called? Zips, you know, like the other one. And like I can't get like a towel or nothing, like just free vacuums, but like they do it at like so I lived here for a couple years, and then Grace and I took a trip up to Minnesota. And when I got there, man, I had so many bugs on my windshield, so I wanted to get a car wash. So I go to the car wash, and they have a car wash that's just like Hoffman's. And it just reminded me, like these dudes, it's the same exact setup. They have the same exact setup, you know, but they just do like a little bit more as far as like having a friendly person at the front, and then also having two teenagers that are probably working for minimum wage plus tips back here that are just drying my car down. And my car looks literally 100 times better than if I just go through the Zips and it looks like it's got streaks on it as soon as I drive out of there, right? And it occurred to me in that moment, man, it's so easy to be the best. All you have to do is do it the way that you're supposed to do it, you know? And I think that where a lot of people go wrong in business is they look at the field. You know, they look at their space and they say, man, how are these people doing it? And I think there's a value in doing that. I'm not saying don't do that, because you definitely should do that. But I think that when you look at the field too much, what you do is you play to the level of your competition. You perceive the standard that everybody's operating at, and you just either meet or maybe a little bit exceed the standard. When in reality, what I have observed in most spaces is that most people are operating well below the standard that like I would accept for myself. I don't want to say, you know, the acceptable standard, but that I would accept for myself, right? And so when I think about practical application of this concept of it's so easy to be the best, like Bridget introducing herself to every one of our customers is such a simple example of what I mean when I say that, right? Like smiling. Like how many times, everybody in here has walked into a retail operation and the person behind the counter looks upset that you came there, right? Like I go to a Smoothie King and the kid in there, you know, acts like he's annoyed that I need a smoothie. Like, I'm sorry, did you miss the part where like this is actually how you have a job? And so, yeah, dude, it drives me nuts. So when I say it's so easy to be the best, what I try to do is just ignore the standard altogether and ignore the field. And I say, dude, this happened to me when I was a personal trainer. Okay, my business did really well right out of the gate. And it was because I had never had a personal trainer before. Like to you, I learned a little bit differently. I never had a personal trainer before. I never worked with one. I didn't know one. So in my head, you know what I did? I said to myself, man, this is going to be so hard. The fitness industry is so saturated. There's all these people online with hundreds of thousands of followers. How am I going to get any clients? And I assumed that all of them, every personal trainer out there, did whatever it took to get their clients results. That's what I assumed. So I went in the game understanding that I needed to either meet or exceed that standard, that they were doing anything and everything. So you know what I did? Dude, I was meeting my clients at the grocery store, trying to help them with their grocery list. I would go to their house and help them with meal prep. You know, I would provide a service that exceeded by far the typical acceptable standard. And it was because in my head, I created a scenario where the standard was that high and that I was gonna lose unless I did that. Well, like in the coffee space, it just, you know, in any space, at my job, those of you that knew me when I was at First Form, like I created so much distance. And dude, I'm saying this just matter of factly. It is what it is. Some of you guys know these dudes. It's cool. Like, they know. But I created he knows. He worked for me. He worked for me over there. I created so much distance between myself and everybody else that, like, when there was, like, a competitive conversation, they wouldn't even include me. Like, they weren't even competing against me. They were competing against each other, right? And I literally, all I did was my job. That's it. I just did it the way it was supposed to be done, and I didn't take any days off. So with the coffee shop, I'm going to take the same approach. Every single customer, one customer at a time, you know, that interaction, the way that I see it is like I'm just going to treat that customer the way that they're supposed to be treated every time. I'm going to fix any of our mistakes. I'm going to be honest when they try to challenge me, and I'm not going to pretend to be the most knowledgeable coffee person in St. Louis. I'm just going to be the friendly face behind Omen Coffee Co. And you know what? I truly believe, I would bet anything that it'll result in Omen Coffee Co. being one of the best coffee shops in St. Louis. You see what I mean? And when I get there, even now, like what did I say? Was it you or you? I just said, man, business is actually so easy. It's so much easier than people make it out to be. And you just have to do it the right way every time and not take any plays off. So
I think can I add just a little bit?
100%, please do.
I
My
think
mouth
what I
is
like
dry.
that you're saying, I talk about a lot, especially when I look at industries in finance like banking or accounting or financial planning, is a lot of people stop once they learn just enough to get the sale or the transaction versus like imagine what's possible. I call like Einsteining things where there's people who want to innovate the potential of the experience and then someone who just learns just enough to be dangerous and they stop right there instead of if you have the time, unless you ran out of time, if you have the time, what's possible? Like, what could we create here? And most people don't have that mindset, unfortunately, of what's possible. They just enough to get the job done.
Like just to play off that, like I know there's a few personal trainers in this room. Why is it that when your trainer tells you to squat 1 inch lower, you can do it? Like why do you not just push yourself there initially? And I think that's what a lot of people lose. It's like why don't you just do it right the first time?
So just to elaborate on this a little bit, I think something that's necessary too to be successful is always keeping in mind that we're like dealing with human beings, right? Like sometimes I often say to myself, deal with people as they are, not as they should be, right? Like we approach conversations, interactions, whatever, even business in an idealistic way. Like we say like, oh, if I bring this product to market, people will buy it, right? Like, but people are people, human beings are human beings. And so to that, like when I was in that space, I recognized that like people don't hire a personal trainer for their workouts. They don't hire them for their diet. I used to give people the most basic workouts ever. Like literally that stuff is all available for free on the internet. All the information that I would teach you, all these workouts, you can get that stuff for free. Why are you paying me? And I realized people are paying me for the accountability. People are more likely to show up for somebody else than they are to show up for themselves. So they're just paying me to be like, hey, did you squat low today, right? But like thinking through, this goes back to understanding what your product is. Like my product was not the workouts. My product was not the diet. My product was the accountability, or my product was the experience that you got when you came to my gym. So it's just, there's a lot of like stuff it's not always intuitive to understand how to actually replicate the experience that you're providing for a customer, because on the surface it might look like it's your product, but your product might actually be something else. Yes, add value. So anyway, to sum this up, guys, and then if you guys have questions like strategy or mechanistically specific, I'm an open book. I don't keep anything really close to the chest. But where can you start without risking it all? That's a question that I would be asking yourself if you're starting, just getting started out. Number 2, you don't have to be qualified. You have to be honest and authentic. I would never, ever, ever pretend to be overqualified. And I think that opportunities pop up as soon as you're honest and transparent about the fact that you're actually not qualified at all. And understand what your hedgehog concept is, and that's just asking yourself the question, what within my space do I think that I realistically can be the absolute best at? And then 4, just remember, it's so easy to be the best. It is so easy to be the best. You just have to do it the way it's supposed to be done every time. So that's my thoughts.